2005, historian John Hope Franklin said, "There is hope that a new generation of athletes will use his popularity, wealth, and influence to help create a desperately needed economy for the vast majority of African Americans who sit on the periphery of society." William C. Rhoden's book, $40 Million Slave. Fam, what's up with the squad? It's your favorite Auntie with Uncle Tendencies. Welcome back to Cess Talks Sports, BY's Polysports Tea Time, the table where sports, culture, and politics get stirred till truth flows to the top. I'm rolling with political ill, no tongue biting, just receipts and reality. Today, we're going all in on the rise of NIL and the new black athlete economy, politics, power, and the plantation pushback. For decades, black athletes built billion-dollar machines. Saturdays packed for college football, March Madness hype through the roof, and didn't see a damn dime. That wasn't an accident, that was policy. Now with NIL, name, image, and likeness, these young black athletes are finally getting a taste of the wealth they've been generating for everybody else. And here's the real. This ain't just endorsement deals and photo ops. Done right, NIL becomes an economic engine, capital investment tools, business development pipelines, the bricks for the next Black Wall Street. But it won't happen on good vibes alone. We need infrastructure, we need education. We need a collective black consciousness that refuses to see these players as just highlight reels. They got to be seen and see themselves as leaders in the black economic renaissance. That's why the pushback is already here. When you start tearing down the plantation economy, the folks who've been getting fat off it ain't just handing you the keys. This ain't just about paychecks, it's about power.
But we're getting some fearful pushback. Whenever black folks start building wealth, here comes the politics of control. Right now, we got Nick Saban. Yeah, that Nick Saban. Teaming up with Donald Trump, and they have pushed an executive order to override the Supreme Court's ruling on NIL. He basically wants an NIL salary cap, so he and his kind can go back to using their civil tongues to charm recruits and their family members into securing prime commitments, with all of the things, other things being equal. It's not just about college sports. It's about shutting down a pipeline to generational black wealth before it really opens. It's about keeping the gatekeepers in place. The ones who made millions, billions, while athletes stay broke, bruised, and grateful.
The system was never meant to benefit us. It was meant to control us. That's the words of William C. Rhoden, author of $40 Million Slaves. Set the tone, y'all. Control. That's the word. Y'all know that's the word I'm always talking about. Keyed in on that one. Control. Because it means so much. We're breaking it down from the plantation model of sports to the political schemes being pulled right now to block the surge of black economic power. Sip your tea. Take notes. Stay ready. Because this is about freedom. This is about finance. This is about the future. Before we talk NIL as liberation, we got to talk about the plantation these athletes have been locked on for decades. William C. Rhoden called it plain and $40 million slaves, the conveyor belt. It starts early. Black boys as young as 8 or 9 get tagged, tracked, and molded for one purpose. They're told the dream is glory, but the real mission is control. AAU gyms become the first stop. High school programs become the holding pen. D1 arenas become the factory floor. At every stage, the system is profiting, and the athlete just a product moving down the line. Every handshake, every scouting trip, every highlight clip, it's all about feeding the machine, the NC2A, the networks, the sponsors. And when that conveyor belt spits you out, most don't walk away with the promised dream, just used up bodies and the memories of being somebody's ticket.
And don't get it twisted. This wasn't some passive setup. The NCAA made billions while locking athletes into unpaid labor, all under the guise of amateurism. No wages, no rights, no voice, just scholarships and silence. They sold the dream of a college education while denying athletes a chance to earn from the very talent that packed stadiums, sold jerseys, and built entire sports networks. Control was masked as opportunity. And if you questioned it, if you didn't stay humble, the media will slap that ungrateful label on you quick. Coaches were kings, boosters were gods, and athletes, disposable. You see, this system was designed to create black excellence without black ownership. These institutions, from ESPN to the NCAA, protected the plantation model by keeping athletes dependent and compliant.
That's why NIL is more than just a payday. It's a disruption. It cracks the whole system wide open. It threatens the conveyor belt economy the NCAA and its power players have been eating off of for decades. And that's why big names like Nick Saban, the architect of the old way, are uneasy. The power dynamic is shifting. Black athletes are stepping off the belt and into control. But to understand what's happening now, you have to know the rules it was rigged with. Roden told us this was never about developing athletes, it was about owning them. NIL is the first real crack in that foundation. And when foundations crack, the gatekeepers go into panic mode. They're not handing over the keys, they're fortifying the locks. Up next, we're breaking down the politics and the power plays behind the push to roll NIL back and put athletes right back in the box it took decades to break open. NIL, name, image, and likeness. A policy shift that lets college athletes profit off their own brand while still in school. Sounds simple, but it's revolutionary. Before 2021, if an athlete took a free meal from a local restaurant, they could lose eligibility. Couldn't sign a t-shirt, couldn't take gas money, couldn't touch a dime. Now, they can cut endorsement deals, launch businesses, and build wealth in real time. For Black athletes, especially in football and basketball, where they make up the overwhelmingly majority, NIL flips the economic script. They've always been the faces of programs, the ones filling stadiums, the reason networks cash billion-dollar checks. But now, they're finally seeing a piece of the pie. We're watching the birth of a Black athlete economy, one that's not only fully dependent on a going pro. That's a threat to the old control model. Example, Shoutout Sanders, not just a top quarterback, but a media brand. Family strategy, led by Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, turned him into a marketing force. Millions of NIL endorsements while in college. Gatorade, Beats by Dre, luxury whips. Example, Flau'jae Johnson, LSU baller and Rock Nation rapper, building a dual career in music and sports, sneaker deals, music royalties, and over $4 million in NIL earnings that have been reported. These athletes aren't just playing the game, they're owning their story and cashing in on the cultural value.
That's right. And while we're on the subject of value, let's talk contrast. Livy Dunn, a white gymnast at LSU, is one of the highest paid college athletes thanks to her social media following. Now, Livy is talented, no shade there, but her visibility is also a product of a media ecosystem that centers whiteness and femininity in very specific ways. Meanwhile, Black athletes with equal or greater reach often face scrutiny or are labeled cocky or distracted for doing the same kind of branding. It's not just about money, it's about who gets to be celebrated for making it. See, the real power shift is happening online. And Angel Reese was one of the first writing the blueprint. This generation of athletes grew up on social media. They understand branding, engagement, and cultural influence better than any generation before them. With platforms like TikTok, Instagram, X, and YouTube, athletes don't need traditional media to shape their image. They are their own media companies now. They're building audiences, telling their own stories, and monetizing their lives on their own terms. And let me be clear, that scares institutions. These young stars are no longer waiting for ESPN to recognize their greatness. They're partnering with brands directly, building merch lines, launching podcasts, and signing with agencies that work for them. Before NIL, most athletes were broke until the draft. Now, you got 18-year-olds bringing in 6 and 7 figures without playing a single minute professionally. That's autonomy. That's freedom. And that's why they're under attack.
Now let's talk about the power trying to snatch it all back. Nick Saban, one of the most successful and powerful college football coaches in history, just aligned himself for 47. Their play pushed for a federal executive order to override the Supreme Court decision on NIL. That's right. They're trying to erase hard-won athlete rights with the stroke of a pen. This isn't some random move. It's a coordinated political play to reassert control over a system that's finally starting to empower Black athletes. That order wouldn't just sidestep the Supreme Court. It would override state-level NIL laws that currently protect athletes' economic freedom. The goal? Re-centralize power in Washington, where they can rewrite policy to protect the old gatekeepers, the NCAA, powerhouse athletic departments, and their corporate donors. And let's be crystal clear. This ain't about fairness or integrity in the other game. It's about money. It's about influence. It's about keeping the racialized labor pipeline alive and profitable. The vast majority of athletes making big NIL money in football and basketball, Black. That's not an accident. What Saban and 47 are really saying, Black wealth they can't control is unacceptable.
Says that's the whole play. This isn't just a sports issue. This is an economic justice and civil rights issue. NIL is giving Black athletes a level of independence the system was never designed for. These players are now funding their families, creating generational wealth, and building business acumen before graduation. And that scares people who are used to controlling the purse strings. Let's not forget the historical parallel. We've been here before. In $40 Million Slaves by William C. Roden, he describes the sport world as a modern-day plantation. Black labor generating mass wealth for white institutions. Now these young athletes are finally stepping off that plantation. And what's the response? Political suppression, legal maneuvers, media fear-mongering. Sounds familiar? Because it is. The same playbook is used in voter suppression. Change the rules, centralize the control, limit who gets access, keep power concentrated. And now they're applying that strategy to college athletics. The ideal is to reframe NIL as chaotic, unfair, or bad for the game, when in reality, it's simply bad for the people who used to own the game. These athletes aren't breaking the system, they're breaking free of it. And that, my people, is revolutionary.
NIL wasn't just a policy change, it was a power shift. Every time power moves away from the traditional institutions and into the hands of Black athletes, the system reacts. That's exactly what's happening right now. The NCAA, the media, and powerful boosters are running a full court press to claw back control. Start with the NC2A. They've been lobbying hard in Washington, pushing Congress to create a federal NIL framework. But here's the trick. That framework will cap how much athletes can earn and control how they can earn it. They're calling it regulation. It's really containment. They want to shrink NIL into something they can monitor, manage, and monetize, all while selling the lie that it's about protecting student athletes. Don't y'all fall for it. Now the media. Every week, a new headline says NIL is out of control. Who gets to decide what's too much for an athlete to earn? The same people who've been profiting off their unpaid labor for generations? That NIL will ruin the purity of college sports line. That's coded language rooted in fear of athlete autonomy, especially Black autonomy.
Exactly, Cess. And now we're hearing calls to professionalize college sports. On the surface, that sounds like progress, right? But when you dig deeper, you see the trap. What they really want is more structure, more rules, and more red tape. The kind that will once again tie Black athletes' hands. Professionalization in this context isn't about fair pay. It's about finding a legal justification to regulate and restrict NIL, to tax it, cap it, and gatekeep it. Because if the NCAA and its corporate partners can't stop NIL altogether, the next best thing is making it so bureaucratic and controlled that it no longer threatens their grip on the athletic economy. This is how institutional power moves. It adapts. It reinvents itself in the name of fairness or order. But we see the game. NIL has exposed the real fear that Black athletes might realize they don't need the system the way the system needs them. And once that realization spreads, the entire foundation of the sports industrial complex starts to shake.
Let's tell the truth. The NIL panic isn't about fairness. It's not about competitive balance. It's racialized fear, plain and simple. Nobody's trying to cap what Livy Dunn is making. Nobody's stressing over Caitlin Clark's brand deals. The panic hits when the spotlight's on Shedeur Sanders, Angel Reese, Flau'jae Johnson. Black athletes using their talent and platforms to secure the bag and change their family trees. That's when the buzzwords show up. Chaos, corruption, out of control. That's when the media starts wringing its hands about influence, image, and locker room dynamics. NIL only gets labeled dangerous when Black athletes are winning, building, and owning their platforms. That's when the old guard calls for bringing back order. Because this is bigger than college sports. It's about economic mobility. It's about Black wealth. NIL kicked open a door that had been locked for decades. A door to generational wealth creation, not just for athletes, but for their families, communities, and cultures. This isn't about sneakers and IG likes. This is about power.
Exactly, Cess. And that's why they're scared, because we are watching the early rise of a new class of Black economic power brokers, young athletes who are no longer just players, but entrepreneurs, influencers, brand strategists, and CEOs. These young kings and queens are building media companies, launching fashion lines, investing in tech, and using their name, image, and likeness to create real equity. And here's the kicker. They're doing it before the pros, before the draft, and outside the approval of the gatekeepers. That kind of independence terrifies institutions that have built billion-dollar industries by keeping Black athletes dependent. So let's be clear. This pushback isn't about saving sports. It's about preserving a racial hierarchy of control. It's about preventing Black autonomy from turning into Black legacy. Because once these athletes realize they don't have to beg for a seat at the table, and they start building their own table, when that happens, the game is going to change forever.
We talked about the power of NIL, how it's shaking the table, and how black athletes are no longer just playing the game, they're owning their name. But this can go even deeper. This NIL wave could be more than paychecks and photo ops. It could be the seed for a black economic revolution. We're talking Black Wall Street 2.0. Athletes using NIL to fuel black-owned banks, fund real estate development, launch tech companies, and build media empires. This is how you flip short-term money into long-term infrastructure. When an NIL deal turns into an equity stake, when a sticker endorsement becomes a housing co-op, when an appearance fee funds a startup that hires from the community, that's not just changing one life, that's rewriting generations. Yeah, I said it.
That's right, Auntie says. NIL isn't just a lane for brand deals and sneaker money. It's a pipeline, a direct pathway to wealth building, ownership, and investment. If we build the right infrastructure around it, think about it. For the first time in modern history, young black athletes are getting 6 and 7-figure checks before they even go pro. That's unprecedented. But the question is, who's helping them turn that money into a movement?
Here's the difference maker. NIL without a plan is just a new spin on the old plantation hustle. But NIL with structure, vision, and community backing, that's a machine for black empowerment. It's seed money for schools to teach more than just sports, for rec centers to keep kids safe and inspired, for tech hubs that connect the block to the global market, for housing co-ops to keep families rooted in their own neighborhoods. With the right systems, an athlete's peak earning years can become a lifetime investment funding opportunities long after the game clock runs out. That's how NIL turns from just a check into a community wealth engine.
And let's be real, our young stars like Angel Reese, Flaw-J Johnson, and Shadura Sanders are already showing us what it looks like. They're not just collecting checks, they're giving back. Flaw-J building a family brand. Angel is using her platform to uplift black women and open doors. And Shadura is invested in youth programs. But what if we had an entire system that made that the norm instead of the exception?
It's time to bring the whole village into the game. We're talking black economists, financial advisors, lawyers, business mentors, the people who know how to make money move. Call in Aerial Investments, our black banks, our investment clubs. Pull them off the sidelines and into the gym. These athletes don't just need coaches for the game. They need capital coaches for the money. People who can break down how to turn that NIL check into equity stakes, business ownership, community reinvestment projects. That's how you take a deal that lasts a season and turn it into a legacy that lasts generations.
And let's not forget the schools, especially HBCUs. It's time for financial literacy to be as common as weight training. Let's get NIL education in middle schools, high schools, and college curriculum. Let's normalize 18-year-olds having LLCs, trust funds, business plans, and real estate portfolios.
Lock in on what's possible when NIL is built for the long game. NIL prep academies in every major black city, teaching athletes the business game as intensely as they train on the court or field. Mentorship pipelines where former players walk the next generation through the real playbook, negotiating contracts, building brand portfolios, and closing deals in the boardroom. A system where every black athlete graduates not just with stats, but with the skills to be a venture capitalist for their own community. Turning sponsorship dollars into housing developments, flipping appearance fees into tech startups, using endorsement money to launch cultural institutions and media platforms. That's how NIL evolves from a moment in sports into a movement for generational wealth. Not just changing lives, but rewriting the economic map for entire communities.
And that's black liberation. That's flipping the script. That's turning NIL into a tool of resistance against generational poverty and systemic extraction. And let's be honest, if we don't build this infrastructure, somebody else will. And they'll make our athletes consumers of the wealth they created instead of owners of it. Come on, Auntie, listen. This isn't just about NIL. This is about reparations through representation. This is about using the visibility and dollars these athletes earn to reinvest, rebuild, and reclaim what was stolen. This is our chance to plant the seeds of Black Wall Street 2.0. But we got to be ready to water it with strategy, unity, and accountability.
All right, here's where we'll leave it. NIL is not the finish line, it's the launch pad. If we execute this right, we're not just raising athletes, we're raising investors, owners, builders, and liberators. This is about moving like we understand the assignment and the moment we're in, because the revolution just might be sponsored.
That part. Stay woke, stay ready, and don't forget to invest in your gifts too.
Now that we've broken it all the way down, here's the next play. The fight to protect the new black athlete economy isn't just on the athletes. It's on all of us, fans, families, coaches, educators. First step, defend and expand local and state NIL laws that protect athletes from federal overreach. That means knowing what your lawmakers are doing, showing up at school board meetings, writing letters, voting like NIL rights are civil rights, because they are. This is economic justice. This is the right to own your name, your face, your future. Next, make sure our young athletes and their families have financial literacy tools in hand early, not just contracts and sponsorships, but ownership strategies, how to invest, how to build credit, how to start a business. Because NIL shouldn't just be about flashy cars, jewelry, and Instagram fame. It should be seed money for generational wealth.
That's real, Auntie. And let's not forget the power of us, the fan. We have to stay woke to the media spin. We've got to recognize when we're being fed narratives that make young black athletes look ungrateful, spoiled, or out of control. Now, they're free, and freedom don't always look comfortable to the folks used to seeing black athletes silent, broke, and begging for scraps. When the media tries to paint NIL as the villain, we have to push back, share the truth, amplify athlete-led content, support the platforms and leagues run by black folks for black athletes like Unrivaled, Overtime Elite, and even athletic-owned media companies. When we shift our attention and our dollars, the power follows. And let me say this clearly. This new economy is ours to protect. But if we don't stand up now, the same system that created the plantation model in William Roden's $40 million slaves will find a way to repackage and control and sell it back to us as reform. The gatekeepers don't give up power. They just change the locks. So we better start building our own doors.
Before we wrap, let's ground it with the words of William C. Roden. Control is the issue. Control of one's labor and one's destiny. That's the heart of the NIL fight. Control. Control over image, control over your income, control over your identity. And that's exactly why it's under attack. Because when black athletes move from the field to the boardroom, the plantation cracks.
And that's the truth. This ain't just about sports. This is about black economic freedom. And the fact that they're trying to override a Supreme Court ruling with executive orders and backdoor deals, that tells you exactly how serious they are about keeping us out of ownership and locked into dependency. We are at a crossroads. Will we let them rewrite the rules again to box us out, the next generation of black wealth builders? Or will we organize, mobilize, and protect this moment like our futures depend on it? Because they do.
If you didn't know before, you know now. This was never just about NIL contracts or court cases. It's about freedom. It's about agency. It's about legacy. William C. Roden told us years ago, control is the issue. Control of one's labor and one's destiny. That line lives in this moment because the NIL fight is really about the same thing it's always been about, keeping black folks out the driver's seat while we keep power in the engine. We've seen this before, from the cotton fields to the court, from the locker room to the boardroom. But this time we got knowledge, platforms, and power we've never had before. The goal now is clear. Protect that power, multiply it, pass it on.
That's right, Auntie, because what they fear the most isn't just a rich athlete. It's a conscious, connected, and unbought athlete, one who owns their image, controls their story, and uplifts their people. That's what NIL makes possible. And that's why they're trying so hard to shut it down. This is more than about college sports. It's about black futures. And the only way we defend that future is if we stay woke, stay loud, and stay ready.
This is more than a podcast. It's a movement. And next week, we keep the fire burning with our next Gaslight NIL episode. The NIL Gold Rush, high school edition. What parents and students need to know. If you know a high school athlete, parent, mentor, or coach, make sure they're locked in. This conversation could change how they approach the game and the business. Here's your play for this week. Like this episode. Tell 10 people, especially anyone raising or working with a young athlete. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Student athletes, parents, and coaches, we want to hear from you. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Remember that the game ain't changed. We did. Sports isn't just about the games we play. It's about the stories we tell and the change we create when we have these conversations together. This has been another deep dish of Cess Talks Sports, BY's Polysports Tea Time. Served hot, where the playbook meets the politics. Stay tuned, stay loud, stay free, be unbothered, be unbought, and be unbossed. Wall Street 2.0 is here, and as fans, we all have a role in it. This Cess Talks Sports and Political Ill, dropping tea, dropping gems. Until next time, peace, power. Stay tuned. Talk soon. We out. In 2000.